just now. In public opinion around the world, Israel is doing very poorly. And it's doing very poorly because people see a country that is behaving in a way that is not compatible with being a liberal democracy. And therefore, I think you have a problem. I think that loss of public opinion, what struck me from your autobiography was how subtly and for how long you have understood this. You know that political power comes from public opinion, and you know that you need to win the battle of public opinion, and you're losing it. You've absolutely lost it in Europe, but much more worryingly for you, you're losing it in America.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So, this is from a while ago, but after watching it again, I'd say it's one of the most heated encounters Benjamin Netanyahu has faced in a major interview. During this discussion, Netanyahu attempts to portray the conflict in Gaza as a monumental struggle for civilization, claiming Israel stands as the primary defense against extremism, warning that if Israel is defeated, the West might soon face a similar threat. Yet, what was meant to be a straightforward interview ends up being unexpectedly challenging for him. Rather than being drawn into emotional historic parallels and sweeping political talk, Zanny Minton Beddoes keeps steering the conversation back to on-the-ground realities, civilian casualties, the devastation in Gaza, and the escalating global criticism of Israel's conduct. And, as Netanyahu endeavors to broaden the dialogue into a symbolic civilizational conflict, Beddoes persistently directs him towards specific accountability and inconvenient truths. This results in a very intense exchange where two starkly contrasting narratives come head-to-head. Believe me, it gets tense quickly. Now, let's dive into it.
There's a huge battle today between the forces of civilization, the forces of modernity, and the very fanatic forces who want to take us back to the early Middle Ages, and do so with a violence that is unimaginable. You've seen these pictures of people cutting open the chest of an enemy, these Islamists, tearing out the heart. The person is still alive and eating the heart. That tells you something. Now, that mentality, that fanaticism has to be confronted. It will move and invade your countries, and it will destroy them. Israel is not just fighting our battle. It's fighting the battle against radical Islam that threatens the future of the world. And I think many people thought communism would threaten the world, or China would threaten the world. I'm saying that this untethered force of an extremist ideology that knows no limits, if it has nuclear weapons, the ballistic missiles to deliver them, and the masses that will destroy democracies, burn Christians.
Prime Minister,
we're committed to defending Christians around the world and in the Middle East. If they win the day, we all lose. Israel is defending itself, but in so doing, we're defending Western civilization.
Prime Minister, that is one way of viewing the world, and I have some sympathy with some of what you've said. Let me give you another way, which is that many people around the world see the state of Israel as a country that is exclusively using military force, that has killed 70,000 people in Gaza, that is doing nothing to create a sustainable future for people there. That is a country, you've been accused of being a war criminal. That if you went to go to several countries in Europe, you're going to get arrested. This is not just mad campus radicalism. This is a feeling around the world. You said it yourself to us just now. In public opinion around the world, Israel is doing very poorly. And it's doing very poorly because people see a country that is behaving in a way that is not compatible with being a liberal democracy. And therefore, I think you have a problem. I think that loss of public opinion, what struck me from your autobiography was how subtly and for how long you have understood this. You know that political power comes from public opinion, and you know that you need to win the battle of public opinion, and you're losing it. You've absolutely lost it in Europe, but much more worryingly for you, you're losing it in America. And I think that what you've just told me about fanaticism is true in part, but it is not going to shape public opinion. People are going to roll their eyes and say, he's saying that anybody who says anything critical about Israel is anti-Semitic. He's giving this large, this story about fanaticism, and he's not accepting the fact that Israel is behaving in a way that we think is...
Pause it right there, because take a look at what Benjamin Netanyahu does first. Instead of discussing policy, borders, or military strategy, he immediately dives into a full-on civilization versus the Dark Ages spiel, as though he's narrating a medieval apocalypse movie trailer. And truthfully, that's intentional. The more he ramps up the emotion and drama, the less people zero in on the actual situation unfolding on the ground. He's nudging viewers into a mindset where questioning Israel's actions makes you feel like you're supporting chaos itself. At one point, he's basically depicting Israel as the last bastion defending Western civilization and Christianity. Brother, calm down. The interview is only 5 minutes in, and we're already talking about the fall of Rome. But what makes this intriguing is that Zanny, Minton, Beddoes doesn't let him indulge in those dramatic speeches for long. She uses a clever tactic. She briefly acknowledges his concerns before yanking the discussion back to Gaza, civilian casualties, and international criticism. It's clear this frustrates him because he wants the dialogue to remain lofty in the realm of good versus evil, while she persistently brings it back to the gritty specifics. Then she presses another sensitive issue. Netanyahu attempts to portray criticism of Israel as mostly coming from agitated campus activists and extremists. But Beddoes firmly counters by highlighting that criticism also stems from European governments, legal organizations, and long-standing allies. That shifts the entire dynamic. Now, the conversation isn't just about crazy protesters versus Israel, but questions why so many significant international voices are voicing concerns. And, one of the most tense moments arises when she essentially questions the notion that every critique of Israeli policy can be brushed off as anti-Semitism. You can instantly sense the tension spike after that, because now the interview morphs into a clash of two completely opposing narratives, one centered around fear and survival, and the other emphasizing the human toll happening right now in Gaza.
With the kind of liberal democracy that he claims.
Well, the liberal democracies that fought the battles from World War II to Afghanistan, to Iraq, and so on, the ratio of combatants to non-combatants killed was 6-1, 7-1. In Gaza, because Hamas was forcing people to stay in urban areas at gunpoint, the ratio is about 1.5-1. And we lost a lot of soldiers because we didn't carpet bomb. We didn't do it. We didn't do.
People have different ratios as well.
I'm telling you, you don't actually, but that's not the point. It certainly wasn't 6-1 or 7-1, and we certainly didn't carpet bomb, which we could have done right away. We've lost a lot of people by my refusal and the IDF's own mores in making sure that doesn't happen. Now, if you have the densest urban warfare theater in history, with 500 kilometers of terror tunnels underneath, 50 meters below, 50 meters above, everything booby-trapped, and you don't come in and just bomb the place to smithereens, which we didn't. I mean, we had everything booby-trapped. We moved the population out, and then you have to fight the Hamas in there. The ratios in Mosul, the ratios in Fallujah, the ratios elsewhere, there's nothing comparison, and that was nothing compared to what our soldiers, our brave soldiers, had to face in Gaza. So, I dispute the fact. The argument that you put forward is being put forward. It doesn't make it true. What is true is that Israel is fighting these worst killers, these people who took not only beheaded our men, raped our women, and then murdered them, burned our babies alive, and took 255 hostages, which we took out. Nobody believed that we got them out. These are barbarians, and they're given a free look. I have demonstrations on behalf of Hamas. Notice that they're burning the flag of Israel and the flag of the UK, the flag of Israel and the flag of America. When you have pro-Israel demonstrations, they wave Israeli flags, they wave American flags, they wave British flags. These people are against you, whether you recognize it or not. They will sweep away your societies, your freedoms, your ideas, the values that we cherish, exactly
Prime
as you
Minister,
do.
it really isn't just extreme radicals. There are huge numbers of people who are concerned about Israel's behavior, frankly, including people like me.
Well, you
Friends
know,
of Israel who
I
are
think that if
concerned.
Britain was invaded, forgive me, you know, if Britain was invaded and you had the equivalent in Britain, your population is what, 65 million, something like that, 60 million, right? So you're about 6 times our size. So if you had on one day about 8,000 Brits murdered, mutilated, raped, and kidnapped, and they came right next to London, what would you do? We know what you did. We know exactly what Britain did, and I don't hold Churchill or the British government or the British people who supported him responsible for saying you shouldn't act that way. You bombed the living daylights out of...
Pause for a moment there because, well, Benjamin Netanyahu is pulling out a tactic that politicians and military leaders love to use during contentious wars, the numbers game. Suddenly, the focus shifts to statistics, ratios, percentages, and comparisons with past conflicts. And notice what happens once this change occurs. The discussion moves from human beings to mere arithmetic. That isn't a coincidence. Transforming civilian casualties into statistical data makes it emotionally simpler to justify what's being broadcasted daily. Netanyahu begins insisting that the casualties among civilians versus combatants demonstrate that Israel is exerting moral restraint. However, this is where the argument becomes murky, since those very numbers are highly contested, varying significantly depending on the source. Various organizations, researchers, humanitarian groups, and independent analysts have provided vastly different depictions of the situation on the ground. Honestly, this is one of the oldest strategies in modern warfare communication. Governments present figures that endorse their narratives, while critics offer numbers to argue the opposite. Meanwhile, regular viewers at home are left thinking, buildings are still reduced to rubble. That's something statistics can't obscure. Because no matter which ratio is spoken on TV, people can see entire neighborhoods leveled. They observe satellite imagery displaying widespread devastation in civilian areas. They witness families clawing through wreckage with bare hands searching for loved ones. And then, Netanyahu tries a tactic that felt like a combination of emotional manipulation and a historical lecture. He brings up Winston Churchill and World War II bombings, almost telling his British interviewer, "Your side bombed cities too, so don't act morally superior now." It's basically a geopolitical "your granddad did it first" argument. Sure, historical parallels can play a role in war discussions, but the problem is that invoking past wars doesn't automatically resolve today's moral questions. Just because harsh tactics were used before doesn't make modern civilians' suffering any easier to defend, especially now that every moment is instantaneously documented. That's the major disconnect Netanyahu appears to have during this talk. He argues as if it's still the 20th century, when governments controlled most images and information in wartime. But now, in the digital age, people witness real-time destruction. Hospitals in ruins, wounded children, collapsed apartment complexes, and frightened civilians, right on their phones every day. Perception can no longer be managed the same way. And that's precisely where Zanny Minton Beddoes keeps challenging him. While Netanyahu wants to focus the conversation on survival, past wars, and existential threats, she continuously redirects it to something more straightforward. If Israel claims to uphold democratic Western values, why are so many in Western democracies increasingly disturbed by what they see? This question looms large throughout the discussion. When allies, journalists, international courts, humanitarian organizations, and even ordinary citizens in allied nations begin questioning whether those values are reflected in military actions, the entire narrative begins to unravel. Throughout this interaction, you can sense that tension. Netanyahu struggles to justify the strategy with history, statistics, and security, while Beddoes keeps bringing the conversation back to the human toll that millions across the globe are witnessing as it happens. Ultimately, this exchange boils down to the clash between military rationale and public moral outrage. Anyway, folks, let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this is certainly one of those issues that deeply divides opinion. And if you've been enjoying these analyses, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm aiming for 1,000 subscribers by week's end, and every single subscription genuinely supports the channel more than you'd expect. Also, drop a like. It really helps get these videos into the algorithm. Thanks for watching, everyone.